Okay, hello, welcome everyone to this second webinar in the new barn raising webinar series. My name's Gareth Potts. I'm the guy who's been sending you all these emails trying to promote the series. I don't want to say too much about the new barn raising concept today, but I should mention it briefly. There is a website, thenewbarnraising.com, that has lots of articles, or quite a few articles, that outline the concept. And there's a free toolkit on there as well with sort of lots of practical tips and pointers around ways to sustain community and civic assets. In a nutshell, what it's really all about is how different organisations and individuals can help sustain what I'm calling community and civic assets. And by organisations, I mean local government, it can be business, it can be trade unions, non-profit groups, social enterprises. And then in terms of individuals, it can be everyone from sort of major philanthropists through to people giving occasionally through crowdfunding, or, you know, just putting some money in a collection tin or something. And then in terms of sort of community and civic assets, it can be everything from sort of major, excuse me, art galleries and, you know, theatres and museums, those type of things. The types of things being raised, there's three sort of main things really, is awareness, the subject of today's webinar, resources, particularly money, but also perhaps other things like equipment, for example, that might be donated by companies. And then lastly, volunteer help. I just want to briefly, obviously, outline the two speakers today. I'm delighted they both agreed to speak. Dima Boulad is the co-founder of the Beirut Green Project in Lebanon. By background, she's a graphic and motion designer. She studied a first degree in graphic design at the American University of Beirut, and she has a master's degree she took in Paris on multimedia with a specific major in motion graphics. She started her own illustration brand in 2010. In 2011, she co-founded the Beirut Green Project, which has been featured on the Guardian Cities blog. It's been in Cityscope, which is where I saw it. And Dima has also done an excellent presentation for TEDx Beirut. The other speaker is Pieter Van der Gheynst, who works at the Brussels Museum Council in Belgium. Peter has a first degree in French and Spanish, and he also speaks absolutely excellent English, probably better than mine. He has a master's in cultural management. His initial career started as an international tour operator, but he's been with the council since 2003. Initially working on the Brussels card, which I'll tell you a little bit about. It's a sort of arts passport. And then since 2012, he's also been leading on the museum Night Fever. So without further ado, I'm going to pass you over to Peter to talk to you about his work. So Peter, over to you, please.
Good evening from Brussels. I'm Pieter. I'm working for the Brussels Museums Council since now 10 years. And well, as Gareth said, I'm in charge for Museum Night Fever and the Brussels Card. So what I'm going to talk about is a bit Brussels and its museums, a short word about the Brussels Museums Council, what we do, who we are, and then more in particular the case of Museum Night Fever. What is Museum Night Fever? What is a bit its unique selling proposition, and what are keys for success and possible challenges? As you might know, well, you know surely, Brussels is the capital of Belgium, so we have two official languages in Belgium, which means that as a capital here, everyone should be speaking the two languages, so which is French and Dutch. Belgium is very complicated politically, which is even worse in Brussels, because as the capital, well, we have like all the different political levels together. So this means Europe, as capital of Europe. This means the federal, the Belgium level, so the national level. There's also the Flemish level, the Walloon level, and even there's a Brussels government, which also has things to say about culture and so on. What you maybe didn't know about Brussels is that we have like 100 museums, which is extremely high if you know that there's only 1 million people living in Brussels, having 100 museums. And well, these museums are very, very diverse. You have like subsidized museums a lot, but there's also a lot of non-subsidized museums. You have museums that depend on the federal state. You have museums that depend on the Flemish government, Walloon government, the Brussels government. So all of this very complicated. There's of course different teams. You have history museums, big art museums, science museums, and so on. And there's also a lot of different sizes. So you have the big national museums, but there's also very little, very specific niche museums. We have, for example, a museum that is just on Art Deco clocks. Then, what's our role as Brussels Museums Council? Well, we are like the urban network of all those museums with all its complexities, all its different kinds of political levels. Very important to strengthen on is that we're independent. So we are an independent organization and we are non-profit. So we don't want, or we cannot make profit with our activities. We are existing now 20 years. We were created in 1995 by, in fact, 15 curators. So it was really the field, so the museum people who decided to create an organization such as the Brussels Museums Council. Important to say also is that we are a very small organization. We work with 7 people here. Which are our objectives? Well, what we do mainly is promoting the museums in Brussels. We also try to develop networking between the museums, because in the beginning museums, they worked all separately and there was no cohesion. So we try to make the museums work together or exchange experiences in between. We also try to stimulate networking between museums and the outside world a bit. So for example, between museums and the tourist sector, because this is a very important connection, or between museums and other cultural institutions such as theaters, movies. Well, this is really important, that museums, they don't stay on their island, but they get connected with the outside cultural or other world. And thirdly, we try to support museums. So for example, if museums have specific questions, then we can give them advice. We organize conferences for them. Sometimes we also do lobbying to politics for them. So, well, that's a bit very shortly what we do and what we want to be. Then let me speak about some of our most important projects. These projects, their aim is to, as I said before, well, to promote our museums, our 100 museums to the big public, and we do this through some projects. The first of it is the Brussels card. It's one of the projects I'm responsible for. So mainly the Brussels card, it's a museum pass. You can use it for 24, 48 or 72 hours. And it's mainly like a sort of forfait you pay. So you pay for the card a fixed amount of money. And once you have the card, you can use for free. You can visit for free all the museums included in the card. At the moment, we have 30 museums that are included in the card, and of course all the big museums are in this card. We also have like special discounts additionally, for example, to go to have a coffee somewhere or to eat in a typical Brussels restaurant. All this included in the Brussels card. The Brussels card is especially meant for tourists, for people who are on a city trip in Brussels, but of course, if you're living in Belgium, you can also buy the Brussels card, but we see that 90% of the people buying the card are tourists. And for this product, we also work heavily together with the Tourist Office of Brussels, which is quite logic. Second project is the nocturnes, or the late night evenings of the Brussels museums. They're always on Thursdays, and in fact it's a whole series of nocturnes. We start in mid-September, in September, and we go on until mid or end December. These museums are open from 5 p.m. until 10 p.m. And every week we try to have a variation on museums. So it's every week like 6 or 7 museums participating. We have especially a local public for this event, so a Brussels public. Important to say is that Museum Night Fever, which I'm going to talk about later, is a different project from this one. So this is really like a series of nocturnes. Museum Night Fever is really one big event. Then another project is Museum Talks. You should certainly have a look at the website, so museumtalks.be. What is it shortly? Well, in fact, it's a website we created with all kinds of very short and very personal audio comments. So people speaking for 2-3 minutes, no longer, about one specific object they like in the museums. These people are non-expert people, so it's people living in Brussels or living in the rest of the country, and they talk as if they would be talking to a friend about like a piece of art they like very much. What's very fun about the website is that you can choose like the theme of what you want to hear about, for example, arts or history, but there's also a choice between languages, because the comments are taken in about 20 different languages. Most of them are in French, English, or Dutch, of course, but we also have, for example, people talking in Arab or Russian or in Chinese about a museum piece. For us, it's very important because this is really also a project that is aiming to, well, to reach the whole world. So we want to show people that we accept all kinds of different languages. So for us, this is a very important issue. Then next project is a map we made with the whole range of museums in Brussels. So I said there were 100 museums. All these museums we put together in one map. It's a very handy folded map with you see an image at your right. So every museum has like a little vignette, a little part, and we put like very practical stuff there, like opening hours, website, how to reach the museum by public transport, a little picture, and a very short presentation on the museum. This map is for free, so we distribute it everywhere in Brussels, in the museums, at tourist boards. And to give you an idea, last edition was on 100,000 pieces. So for us, it's really important, this as a promotional tool for the museums. Then, also very important, evidently, is our portal website, brusselsmuseums.be. With this website, we aim to be really complete. So there you find all the activities in the museums, you find all the exhibitions, you find a link to all the museums. So this is really for us a very exhaustive website. So crucial, I think, for the promotion of the museums. Also saying that we're also active on social media. On Facebook, we are now a bit above 10,000 fans, but also on Twitter, we have like 2,000 followers. So for us, these social media are becoming more and more important to communicate with our community, with our public. And then the project I'm going to talk a bit more about is Museum Night Fever. You see a lovely picture of dancing girls in the Army Museum. Let me talk a bit more about Museum Night Fever. So essentially, what is Museum Night Fever? Well, Museum Night Fever is just the fancy name we gave to the Museum Night of Brussels. So it's an annual night in the Brussels museums, and it's always the first Saturday of March. For us, it's important because this way people, they know that first Saturday of March, it's Museum Night Fever. Last edition, we had like a bit more than 20 participating museums, and these museums, they were open all night from 7 p.m. until 1 a.m. at night, followed by an after party until 6 o'clock in the morning. What's very particular is that these museums, they are open, so you can visit their collections, you can visit the exhibitions, but we also add to that a whole bunch of activities. So last year we had more than 100 activities, created really for Museum Night Fever. These activities are really like cross-disciplinary, so this means that we try to do all kinds of stuff in the museums that you normally don't see in the museum. So we had theater, we had music, we had dance, performance, workshops, video, défilé, fashion défilé, so all kinds of unusual stuff in the museums. At the end of my presentation, you will see some pictures of activities. What's very important is that there's also a link between these activities and the collections of the museum. So we don't want to invite, for example, a theater company who's just playing their latest play. There really should be a link between, for example, the theater play and the collection of the museum. So for this, these activities most of the time are really new creations. So people made these activities really in function of the museum. So this is very important because the meaning is with these activities to give like a different view on the museum. There's also buses between the museums. There's one all-in ticket, democratically priced. It's 10 euros. And maybe saying also that we started in 2008. Then we were like 7 museums, 4,000 people attending. And last edition, March this year, we were at 23 museums. We had 17,000 unique visitors who visited that evening 60,000 times a museum, which is huge amounts of museum visits in one night. I think we're really the biggest museum event of the year in Brussels, which makes us very proud. And I think for the public, we have especially a Brussels public or the wider region of Brussels, but also the rest of the country and even abroad we have like visitors. This is a map where you see, this is our little country, Belgium. The big spot in the middle is Brussels. So you see, these are the statistics for where we have our public. So we see it's especially Brussels and surroundings of Brussels. This is a slide of Europe. So you see that we also have people coming from Paris, London, Madrid, Barcelona, Milan. So it's very nice for us to see that, well, we have like a really big range of public. Okay, Museum Night Fever, what is the mission or what was for us like the basis to start with this project? This was really like a very specific question from the museums to how can we attract more young people in the museums? So they really looked for like an event to do this. I think with Museum Night Fever, we try to show that museums, they are still relevant in our actual society. So we really are looking for these links connecting the world of the museums and the world of today, the world of young people. And I think it's also important for the museums also to raise awareness for the museums, because for them, Museum Night Fever is like a big lab. It makes them experiment new ways of working with their public. They discover new ways of presenting their collection. So I think also for the museums, it's a very rich experience to work on a project like this. Then what's our like USP, unique selling proposition? I think like the slogan for Museum Night Fever is that we are a museum event for and by young people, and these two words are very important. So the for and the by. The for, well, it's our target audience are young people, so we want to attract young people from 18 to 35 years old. I think we really succeed in that because 77% of our public is less than 35 years, which is quite exceptional in a museum context where you often have like averages of 50, 55 years old. Then very important for us is the by young people. And I think this is what really makes the difference with other museum nights, for example, in, I don't know, Berlin, Köln, Rotterdam, you have museum nights everywhere. This is really our focus. So we want to not only work for young people, but also work with young people. So these young people, they get an active role in developing all these artistic activities during Museum Night Fever, which gives them a sense of ownership. They are proud to be presenting something. It's also empowering because we also work with groups that don't have the habits to go to a museum. So these youth partners, we call them, so the partners who are making the program, it's, well, the obvious ones, it's the high schools or the art high schools, conservatories, but we also work with, for example, youth clubs or even sports clubs. You will see a picture of a sports club in Auto World further on. So for us, partners, youth partners, what's important? So, well, first of all, it's that these partners are young people. So the target group is 18-35. So also the people creating for Museum Night Fever are between 18 and 35 years old. We also want to give like a platform to the non-professional artists. So we don't want to work with the big theater companies, for example, because they also have they already have platforms for doing their stuff. So we really work with people starting just their artistic career, or even people still studying at school, or even not studying arts, but just working in a youth club and being enthusiastic about doing something in a museum. It's also important to work for us with local people, with Brussels people, young Brussels people. And what I already said, the art partners are important, but we also try to diversify. So this year we worked with a group of people with a mental handicap doing something in the museum. We also try to work, if possible, with economically disadvantaged people. For example, if you work with youth clubs, there's a lot of young people who are not the typical museum public. We try to work with people with different ethnical backgrounds. So for us, this is very important to have a diversified public. What's very important also is to be as consequent as possible. So we work with young people, but in fact everything around Museum Night Fever also has this young touch. For example, the graphic designers we work with are young people. We work with a lot of volunteers at the entry of the museums. It's not the normal volunteers, but it's really young volunteers that are there. We also have guided visitors in the museums. We don't work with the guides of the museums, but we work with young people who are doing this for us. So this is really important for us, this being consequent. I just show you some pictures. This was the sports club in the Auto Museum, Fine Arts Museum. This was a fashion défilé with Brussels High School, very nice, in the Royal Army Museum. Also like fashion défilé performance linked to the exhibition in Beirut. This was very nice. This was a graffiti, but not with paint, but with chocolate in the Chocolate Museum. Demonstration of Qigong. This was an open air museum, a pop-up museum, very nice project. We worked with a refugee center in Brussels. So they took like the royal galleries in Brussels and they filled it with art pictures from refugees. These are the buses where we put musicians to like animate a bit the buses. Very nice light sculptures we had a bit everywhere in the city. And this is our volunteers in one museum, in the Army Museum. What are the keys to success for Museum Night Fever? Well, I think what's important is that you engage really your audience to your project. So this kind of active participation, the notion of peer-to-peer. For example, partners we work with, well, they invite their friends. The friends, they come to see the people because they're doing something in a museum. Sometimes a public enthusiast about our event, well, they become a volunteer for the next edition. So there's really like a constant interaction about being active, passive, partner or public. Very important also is not to do everything yourself, but look for really good partnerships, media, cultural organizations, work with tourist boards, they're very important. Public transport is important for us, local authorities, schools, also being consequent, what I said already. So don't just work on your program, but also work on your communication campaign. For example, we have to work with young people, so also the communication campaign is like orientated to young people, the volunteers, the partners. So this all has to be really consequent. And I think very important also is to be original, authentic, to think out of the box, and to create like a unique experience, because otherwise people, they don't come. If it's just more of the same, they will not come. And then finishing already, the challenges for us, it's, well, I think very important, it's very time consuming. I'm working like 6 months, a year, just for this project. It's also very budget consuming, because the museums, well, they have to pay like their security people, they have to pay like electricity for the night, especially the big museums. They have more and more problems with the costs this represents. So this is really like a challenge for us for next editions. Another challenge is to diversify the public. I said we wanted to diversify the public, but our majority is still like the white high school public. So yeah, we're looking for ways to diversify more, but it's not evident. Another challenge is that, well, Museum Night Fever, it's like a kind of pimped version of the museum. We really create something special, but there's also like the normal museum context. Once Museum Night Fever is over, people still have to, yeah, find their way to a normal museum. We try to stimulate this by allowing people with their pass to visit Museum Night Fever 1 month more. So this gives the opportunity for them to also visit the museum in a normal museum context. We saw that 10% of our visitors really used their pass to visit the museum also afterwards. Also a challenge is the quality of the activities, because we work with young people, non-professional people. So for us, it's important to see that, well, what they propose is like really sort of quality. Okay, I'm done.
Thanks very much, Peter. I'm going to pass you over now to Dima in Beirut. Dima, over to you, please.
Hello, everybody. I would like to start today this webinar by giving you this number, 0.8 square meters. Now, what do you think about when you think 0.8 square meters? It's less than a square meter, so it's very, very small. It could be the chair that you're sitting on right now, or a table that's right in front of you. But actually, in regards to the story of Beirut Green Project, this number represents how much each person living in Beirut gets as green space in the city. The World Health Organization recommends for a city to be healthy to have 9 square meters per person. So look where we are. We are 11 times less than a healthy city. Having said that, I would like to introduce you to Beirut Green Project. Beirut Green Project started with a frustration. It started with the realization that this number is wrong and it shouldn't be the case. We live in a very unhealthy city, and at the time, 4 years ago, there was nothing that is being done about it. Now, I'll give you a bit of context about Beirut, Lebanon. Beirut is the capital of Lebanon. Lebanon is a very small country in the Middle East. While we have a lot of problems, we might be always on the news, as you might have heard. But one of the problems that sometimes seems secondary to people is the lack of public green spaces in Beirut. And this, I would say, as an organization, is one of the challenges that we face. Seeing this as a secondary problem. If a lot of people tell us, whoa, in Beirut or in Lebanon, we have a lot of problems still. We don't have a lot of water. We don't have electricity 24/7. We don't have, you know, we're in a very chaotic country. Why do you want to focus on green spaces right now? And all our energy and efforts go to saying to people that this is a very important aspect. Green spaces and public green spaces are a very important aspect of any city. And why? Public green spaces bring us places where we can go and socialize with people that are not like us, with people that are diverse. Green spaces make our city less polluted. They clean up the air. And having access to these spaces are a right rather than a privilege. But I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I'm going to walk you through the story of how Beirut Green Project actually started. Beirut Green Project started with the realization that Beirut didn't used to be this gray. Beirut had green spaces, like this one. What is happening today in Beirut is that the gray is taking over the green. And not a lot of attention is being given to green spaces. 4 years ago, I had just returned from my studies, doing my studies in Paris. And when I came back, I realized that there was something that was wrong. When I was in Paris, I used to go to the parks and to gardens all the time. I used to drink my coffee in the morning in the garden next to my house, or during my lunch break when I was at work, I used to gather a few co-workers and we would go to the garden next to work instead of eating our lunches on our desks. And at night, when I wanted to just meet up with friends, we used to get some picnics and go to the gardens. So I got used to these places, and I got used to the fact of having green around me. So when I came back to Lebanon, I realized that there was something wrong. And this is the time when I met my friend, Nadine, and together we decided to do something about it. So we designed signs that look like the municipality signs. This is one of the signs that belong to the municipality. So we designed one that instead says, "Enjoy your green space." And we woke up at 4 a.m. that day and placed 1 square meter of green grass with a sign that says, "Enjoy your green space," in 9 locations around Beirut. It was in spaces that were suffocating. It was in big plazas that were gray instead of them being green. It was very, very ironic. The message was very ironic, and people were very intrigued. People that were on the streets that were just waking up to go jogging or to go to work, they just stopped us and said, "What's happening? What are you doing?" They were very intrigued, but they knew that we were doing something that was important, and they knew that this cause was important for them. That's an example of the intervention that was in downtown Beirut. So you can see it was in a very gray area, like almost deserted, but no green. So a lot of people came by this intervention, took pictures of it, and the whole intervention went very viral around Beirut. People picked up those pictures and started talking about the subject. And this is when we knew that we had a mission to accomplish. It wasn't just an intervention. We knew that the cause was involving everybody and that everybody should be talking about this more often. So this was 4 years ago. So the year after, on World Environment Day, we decided to go bigger. So we picked a place which is in a very busy plaza in Beirut, and we teamed up with an NGO called Green Line, and we decided to green it up for the day and make a pop-up park. Amazing things happened that day. People joined efforts so we can green up the space, and people came with their bikes, with their books, with their toys, with their children. People were having fun. More than 400 people came that day. People that we knew, people that we didn't know, people who were just passing by. It was incredible. I still, like until now, I still get goosebumps when I think about that day, because all we were saying in one loud voice together, just by being there, we were saying we need more public green spaces. And we need them because they are here to make us healthier people. So as you can see, there was this lady. There's a very funny story about this lady who came by. She was just passing by Cécine Square, and she stopped and asked us, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And we're like, "This is a pop-up park for 1 day. Come and join us." So she went home, she got her book, and came back and sat with us. And it was very refreshing to see her just joining us like that. So what was really important about that day is that we were very peacefully saying that public green spaces are a right. They are not a privilege. Even if Lebanon is a very small country, and even if in 30 minutes or 1 hour you can go to the mountains and have some nature around you and have greenery around you, this doesn't mean that public green spaces in the city are not very important. So we gathered around this idea, and from this concept, we created Beirut Green Project. We are a collective of people who dream of a greener Beirut and want to say so in a fun way and in a fresh way. We are not about going to the streets, doing protests, going to manifestations and saying that we want more. We want to actively say that we need more public green spaces. So, what was the plan? What we wanted to do as Beirut Green Project was divided in 3 categories. We knew that in order to get the situation to a better place, we had to rehabilitate the already existing public green spaces. We had to raise awareness on the importance of having public green spaces, and we have to create new public green spaces. So basically what we are addressing is the past, so rehabilitating the past spaces that we have, raising awareness, that's the present, and creating new public green spaces, that's the future. In order to get to the point number 3, we knew that we already had to start by point number 1 and point number 2. It was very important for us to realize that step. We didn't want to say that, yeah, we want more, but we had to start by using what we have and raising awareness on how important they are. So we started a series which is called Green Your Lunch Break. It's an activity that we started 3 years ago, actually, where we started going around gardens in Beirut and discovering them one by one, and inviting people to come join us on their lunch breaks. So people who work next to it, or people who have some free time and want to join us in between meetings or in between breaks, or basically it was an invitation to come have a picnic in a park with us. And it was very surprising because to many people, because a lot of people, we noticed that a lot of people don't know the gardens that we have in Beirut. And we found that it's quite surprising that we live in a city as small as Beirut, and we don't have and we don't know about these spaces. One very good indicator of how these lunches did their multiply effect, if you will, is that, okay, this was at one of the lunches that we organized last week. So this girl posted a picture on Instagram saying, "I'm greening my lunch at Hersh Tabat Garden with cup and roll delicious treats." And her friend replies, "We have a garden in Beirut." And she replies back, she says, "Who would have known? But apparently we do." And this, to me and to us at Beirut Green Project, is an indicator of success. At the same time, we had a workshop with the University of Arts in Hamburg, and we were brainstorming about what are the methods in which we can tell people about the already existing parks that are in the city, and brainstorming about why we don't know about these spaces. And we noticed that it could be as simple as having a map. So we worked on a map called the Beirut Green Guide. And we did that with the help of a design company called Wonder 8. And actually what happened is that all the people who worked on this map did it from their personal efforts, from their personal time. It was part of a CSR program of Wonder 8, and it was a collective effort to create this map. Why? Because we all knew that this was very important. In order to know where we have to start working, where we have to start implementing those solutions or rehabilitating the gardens, we have to start by seeing what we have. And the result that we have, the number that we had, that we encounter, was also a surprising one, because we discovered that we have 24 gardens around Beirut. Now, if you go ask most of the people that you ask around, if you walk around Beirut and ask people how many gardens do you think we have in Beirut, most of the people are gonna say between 3 or 8. Some people might say 10, but very, very few people will guess that we have 24 gardens in Beirut. And we thought that this was a perfect chance for us to launch the Beirut Green Guide, that is which is an interactive map that is now online. You can go to it, you can check it out. It's called the beirutgreenguide.com. Just to show you some information about the gardens that we have. So we basically worked with different filters, so you can filter the parks according to what you want. You can go, you can see which ones have Wi-Fi, which ones are pet friendly, which ones have children play area, and which ones have functioning bathrooms. This is an example as well as of the secondary pages that show you some information about the gardens. So you have the historical context, you have the number of gates, the number of benches, and the surface of the gardens, as well as pictures and directions to get to the garden. This was a very important point for us. This was a very telling point for us, because we knew that this is how we can start working together collectively to make Beirut a greener space. How? I'll tell you how. This is a message that we were relaying in all the conferences that we were doing, and all the workshops that we were doing, in every places when we were talking to people, we were focusing on one concept. If we go to those gardens and go massively to them, and go there at lunch, for a picnic, for a coffee in the morning, for meetings, to go run, if we go to them and use them, we would be we would be pressuring decision makers to basically get us more of them. We would be actively saying that we need more public green spaces. And this was all our concept. So these are some of the pictures that we give examples. I mean, we give examples to people. If they want to run, why don't they go to this garden in Hamra? There's this garden that's very nice, that has very nice shady areas. I mean, not shady, areas with some nice shadow in Ashrafiyeh, which is a very nice neighborhood in Beirut. There's this one in downtown Beirut, which is also very, very nice. It's very central. It could be great for concerts, let's say. And there's the biggest one that we have, which is the most problematic one. We do have a park which is called Hirsh Beirut in Assas. And the problem of that park is that it's been closed to the public for 10 years now. In 1982, it was burned down when Beirut was in the middle of the war. It was burned down by the Israeli forces, and basically the park was closed for 20 years till the end of the war in 1992. In 1992, the French government helped Beirut and helped Hirsh Beirut Park to stand on its feet again, and for us to have a good park again. So they invested a lot of money in order to plant more trees, in order to rehabilitate it and make it good again. And the condition was for them to close the park from 1992 till 2002, so that the trees can grow well, and so that the park would be well rehabilitated before people started going in. Now we are in 2015, so we are way more than 2002, sorry. And the park should have been opened already. And this park is the biggest one that we have. It's the biggest park. It's the biggest park that we have in Beirut, and it's still closed to the public. So our battle also works on Hajj Beirut Park by saying that it's not acceptable for us to have it closed. Now, you might ask me why it is closed. There are a big number of reasons why Hajj Beirut is closed. One of them is that the municipality really fears that people might misuse it. While this is not the case, I think when you give people trust, they're going to give you back trust. It should be open, and it should be open well with good management, with a good park management strategy. One of the main messages that I want to get across today as part of this webinar is talking about crowdfunding. And I'm not talking about crowdfunding as getting money, as much as I'm saying crowdfunding of efforts. And I think the Beirut Green Guide is a good example of how we organize ourselves and got help from very different places in order to get a project done. And this is how it should be. This is how it should be in a city. I believe that people have very different kinds of talents and skills, and they want to volunteer or help out in very different ways. Now, what is the way in which we can get all people together for one cause and one big cause, which is making Beirut a greener city? I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, there was this park in Ashrafiyeh called Jesuit Park, Jaitawi Park, and it's a very old garden. Mostly old people go to walk around and sit around all day, or it's mostly visited by old people. It's a very charming garden with very old ruins. We decided 2 years ago to actually get some help from designers who are a collective working in Beirut. So we got them to join us, and we got Color Tech to sponsor the event, and we went and painted the benches for one day in the park. The reaction of the people that were people who always go to that park is priceless, because we were saying that, okay, together we can make the situation better. If you give me the paint as a sponsor, if you give me your time as designers, and come and not these designers is the name of the collective, and if all together we work together and crowd fund our resources, we can make things together. That was the result. A garden full of colors again, and the residents of that garden were very happy, because they knew that we cared, and they saw for one day that people cared about their garden. The municipality of Beirut has a new project that is about 2 or 3 years old, that is called Beirut is Amazing. In Arabic, it's Beirut بتجنن. It's a very smart project in which they take garden by garden around Beirut, and they partner up with private funders in order to rehabilitate already existing gardens that we have. So they team up with a landscape design firm or an architecture firm to redesign the space for it to be optimal, and they team up with a funder. So it could be any private company that is willing to pay for their rehabilitation of the garden. And this is how there's a good synergy between the private sector and the public sector. So private funds are being used for public good. And this, again, I come back to the idea of crowdfunding with this example, and by saying that this is how we crowdfund, and this is how we take our resources, put them together in order to make Beirut a greener place. So I tell you now, what can we do in Lebanon? If you go to the beirutgreenguide.com and look at the different gardens that we have, a lot of them have deficiencies. A lot of them have problems. What can we do in order to make Beirut a greener city? We have 24 parks, and these 24 parks need attention. So before creating more public green spaces, how can we work on those already existing ones and work on raising awareness to Tell people that this is a right rather than a privilege, and gather enough resources between all of us in order to make Beirut a greener city. This is the plaza that I introduced in the beginning of the webinar. This is the place, which is called Sistine Square, that was greened for one day with the pop-up park. How can we work together in order to make this square a permanent green square and not just green for one day? So I ask you this today. What can you do in order to make a difference around you? What is something that really frustrates you and you want to do something about it? Because the story of Beirut Green Project, okay, it's true that it's the story of public green spaces in Beirut city, but it's also a story that can be applied to any other problem in any other city in the world. If something is frustrating you and if something you think can be better, go ahead, go design that sign, do that intervention at 4 a.m. in the morning, wake up and express yourself, because this is how we can start voicing our concerns and giving them a life and giving them a purpose. And this is how we can all together crowdfund our resources, put our talents together, put our minds together in order to make our problems solutions. Thank you. This was Beirut Green Project.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Dima. We've got time for some questions. There's a few questions come in. And please feel free to submit more questions. Question here for Pieter. Is there evidence of the numbers of people using the museums having increased after the museum night started?
Yeah, well, it's a hard question, because if there's someone going to a museum, they don't ask them at the entrance, did you go because you went to Museum Night Fever or something like that. So this is hard to figure out. But what we see is that, say in the last 5 years, that I think young people, they are more present in museums. You also see that museums, they organize more activities for young people, not just for us, for Museum Night Fever, but also because of Museum Night Fever, they learned some things on how to manage young people, and they do it themselves. So I think there's certainly a positive evolution, certainly, but it's very difficult to put figures on it, because there's no like scientific research. What we do every year is like a sort of survey for the visitors, and one of the questions is, did this event change your mind on how you see museums? And then most of the people, they say yes, that they really discovered new places. And the second question was, are you now going to do more museums than you did before because of what you saw? And then there's also an overwhelming majority that says yes. So I think this really helps people to discover new places and to see that museums are not boring at all, that there's like links to their own world. So I think it's important, but it's not scientific. I don't have scientific conclusions for that.
Thanks for that, Pieter. There's a question here for Dima. What role does Beirut city government play in the parks, and what role would you like them to do?
Actually, as I mentioned, the efforts have just been, or let's say the whole subject has just been picked up by the municipality. So this is something that is recent. Before that, we never heard that the municipality is doing anything for gardens. So it's either that, they were doing stuff, but we were not aware at all and nothing was showing. So this is it's new that it's on their agenda. So basically, now what's happening is that they know that this is an important subject to be addressed and worked on, and this is how they launched their initiative. Beirut is amazing, and but actually, what should happen actually is having very large number of people working in the municipality that are just taking care of gardens and parks. it's not like, because now it's like one of the it's like one of the subjects that they treat and they take care of, but I think it should have like teams that totally dedicated for that 24/7. Not
Yeah.
perhaps not 24/7, but like just fully dedicated all the time. I think there should be more work on the ground from the municipality side. So, because what ends up happening is that whatever decision they take about rehabilitating one of the parks is it's a decision that comes from up, and the regular residents might they just feel like, okay, where did this decision come from? And this ends up harming the relationship that people have with their parks, because they're not always taken into consideration about what they need or what they would like to see better. And in order to create a sense of ownership, because I'm picking up what Pieter said earlier in his presentation, like the sense of ownership is very, very important. So if you want to make people, if you want to empower people and give them sense of ownership so that they can take care of the gardens and feel that they're their own, you have to consult them, you have to include them in the process, you have to start by asking them, like making long sessions with them to understand the problems that are happening in the parks, not just decide on how to rehabilitate it.
Okay, thanks, Dima. And then final question here, I think probably a question for Pieter. Have you been able to attract corporate sponsorship for the museum night, Pieter?
Very hard, very hard. It's almost impossible, because I think we're a big event, but we're perceived as a Brussels event, because we have most of our public is from Brussels, and I think for the big companies, they just want even more big projects. I think we're in between small project and a very big project, so this means that we're not, I think, really attractive for private sponsors. We have tried a lot. We've tried banks, we've tried like marks of drinks, we tried all kinds of stuff, but yeah, it's very hard. And I think with the economical crisis, it gets even more hard to have these people with you. But in fact, we have a lot of public funds, so we have the authorities that are subsidizing us, and we have, of course, also the entrances from the ticket fees. So in fact, we're succeeding in getting to sort of break even without private sponsors. But private sponsors would be interesting for us, because also the public funds, they are shrinking, and if one day the government says we don't have money for you, then we have a problem, because yeah.
Thanks, Pieter. I think we should draw things to a close there now. I'd just like to thank both of our presenters again, Pieter Van der Gheynst of the Brussels Museum Council and Dima Boulad of the Beirut Green Project. Two contrasting presentations, but both very informative and inspiring. Hopefully some tips and useful pointers there for you in your work.